Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Kovacs here. Yesterday in Mishnah Yomi, we started chapter 7, Bava Batra. Now we're doing Mishnah 3 and 4 today. Mida bechevel ani mocher loch, hen chaser hen yater. So he says, I'm going to sell you land that's measured by the rope. As we saw yesterday, that means it's got to be exact. There can't be any discrepancy in the area he is selling. But he also says, hen chaser hen yater. It might be less, it might be more. So he's saying two contradictory things. He's saying it's going to be exact, and he's saying, yeah, more or less. As you saw yesterday, there's a certain leeway allowed when he says more or less, even up to 1/24. So bitul hen chaser hen yeter mida bechevel. So the second words, less or more, destroys the legal effect of the original phrase. The first words, mida bechevel, it has to be exact. The Mishnah brings the opposite case, hen chaser hen yoter, mida bechevel. If the seller said it's less or more, and then he said it's going to be measured exactly with a rope, bitel mida bechevel, hen chaser hen yoter. The second words nullify the first words, divrei ben nanas. This is according to Ben Nanas, who says the second phrase is the ikar. It's like a retraction. We say tafis lashon achron. We say that the seller really meant to retract the first statement by issuing a second statement immediately after that's contradictory. The Gemara, they explain the other sages disagree with Ben Nanas. They say, hamotze mechavero alav haraya. So in these cases, if there is a discrepancy, then the buyer really would, take a little bit of a hit because he didn't, he would have to prove what the seller intended. Obviously, better to get it in writing and, have the lawyers double check. The Mishnah continues, B'simonov meitzarov, I'm selling you land with these markings in these meitzarim, in these boundaries. Pachot mishtut higiu. If the discrepancy is less than 1/6, the deal goes through. Ad shtut, if the discrepancy is up to 1/6, yenoke, then he needs to deduct the purchase price. So what's going on here is the seller saying, for example, I'm selling you a bait core, and it goes from that fence to that tree to that rock. Those are the signs and the borders of the field. So if it's actually a little bit less than a bait core, up to 1/6, then the deal goes through. Really, the buyer could have gone and checked and measured those boundaries exactly if he wanted to. So it's about, and it's within those bounds. He knew the bounds, so it's up to him. But if it's a greater discrepancy, the deal doesn't go through, because after all, he's not really selling something like a bait core. And adshtut yanake, so if it's missing up to 1/6, then the buyer can deduct from the price. And so too, if actually he's given more, if he's given more than 1/6, it's actually bigger than a bait core, then he would give back if it's more than 1/6. On to Mishnah Dala, Omer lechaveru, someone's selling his field, he says, Chotzi sode ani mocher loch, I'm actually selling you half of this field. Mishamnin benehem, we actually evaluate the total value of the field. V'notel chatzi sedehu, and he takes half of the field by value. So the buyer doesn't literally get half of the surface area of the field, he gets half the value of the field, even if, you understand the field might have a certain area that's more valuable, and then if he's getting something that's doesn't include that area, he would have to get more area, more surface area to make up for that. Chetzia bedorum, on the mocher loch, the seller says, I'm giving you half my field in the south. Mishamnin benehem, we evaluate the total value of the field. Notel chetzia bedarim, he takes half of the value, but he takes it from the south part of the field, even if it's not exactly the southern half, because not every part of the field might have equal value. V'hu mekabel alov makam agoder, and he, the buyer, needs to use land that he's just purchased on his half of this larger field for the fence. So the fence is going to go on his property, part of the buyer. Haritz, the ditch, ben haritz, and the junior ditch. Kamahu haritz, how big is the ditch? Shisha tefachim, it's 6 tefach wide. Ben haritz, the son of the ditch, shosha, it's 3 tefach wide. And the Gemara, they explain these are kind of little moats to prevent animals from jumping over or climbing over the fence. The larger haritz, the larger trench, is further out away from the fence, so animals don't, get a running start and jump over. And the smaller one is right next to the fence, so the animals don't jump the first trench and then have access to climb up the wall right next to it. And it's a great musar generally when we're trying to protect something valuable, our neshama, our families, our children, from what's outside and the creatures that want to jump over the fence and eat them up. It's important to have not just a fence, but to leave space also for some extra protection, some extra moats and ditches and whatever we need to do our hishtadlut. And Hashem should, we also, of course, we should dive into Hashem to protect us and our families from anything damaging out there, and of course to build ourselves up with Torah and mitzvot as the real protection. Tiskulu mitzvot.